What's going on, brothers and sisters? This brother Tezwan. I wanted to come out and do another video. I know I missed a video on the Sabbath, but things happen. I was studying, so it is what it is. But this morning I was woke up and I had my waking thought was about a person and kind of a idea or viral idea that seems to be going around a lot here recently. The person was about a guy by the name of Kevin Samuels. Believe it or not, I actually follow him. I think he's interesting in terms of some of the stuff he talks about. Really the only thing he talk about. I don't agree with everything he says, but he does, in my opinion, make valid points when dealing with certain issues. But one of the things that I think has really made him popular is the conversation around high value men or high value women. And so being that I follow him, of course, a lot of stuff about him shows up on my timeline on both Facebook and YouTube. A lot of my favorite comedians, I think I watch more of them than I watch of him, tend to parody him. And some of it's pretty funny. And probably my favorite is Afion Crockett. So shout outs to Afion. But I wanted to talk about some of this, what's being presented, specifically the topic of high value man or high value woman. I have a really different view and position when it comes to this topic. I feel like the definitions that Kevin Samuels and others, because it's not exclusive to him, he's the popular person that's presenting it right now, but it's not exclusive to him. So I feel personally like much of what he's presenting and other people has presented are outcomes. They're not really the true litmus of how to identify, and I don't even want to say what they say because I say something completely different. So basically the synopsis of this video is high value man / woman versus righteous driven man / woman. So I'm gonna go down them. Basically, I have it bulletized one by one and kind of show and talk about the differences. I'm not gonna get into too much on the high value stuff. You can go look at Kevin Samuels' definition video, and you'll see, everything he talks about. So I'm not gonna really. I'll state the basic point, and then we'll touch on it, and then I'll go into my version, my opposite of what the true litmus test or measure of a righteous driven man or woman. So again, this is high value man or woman versus righteous driven man or woman. So according to Kevin Samuels and others, a high value man is a man that makes, or a high value woman is a woman that makes, man or a woman. So when I say man, just know that I'm talking about women too. Makes $10,000 per month. All right. Again, I'm gonna leave it there. You can go look at his video and see how he goes into detail. So, again, a high value man. That's the first thing he says. Makes $10,000 a month. So what I say is that's an outcome. All right. Everything in this list that he presents and others present to me is an outcome. So a high value man is a $10,000 per month man. All right. What I say, and contrary to that, opposite of that, you should be a righteous driven man. And what that requires is you to seek, to follow, and to love the Most High God first and foremost. Now, in seeking, following, and loving the Most High God, you realize there's an order and there's a purpose. So you have to find your order and your purpose. All right. And then when we start talking about relationships, and I'll get to that in a minute, then the person that you're looking for needs to share these same seek, follow, love the Most High God, and understand and recognize there's an order and a purpose. All right, so that's number one for a righteous driven man or woman versus a high value man or woman making $10,000 a month. All right, number two, the second thing he covers, or the second thing he says makes a high value man or woman. The person makes $10,000 a month for at least 3 to 5 years. So again, it comes back to money, outcome. So in contrary to that, a righteous driven man or woman operates knowing time is most valuable asset and currency. So time is the most valuable asset and currency we have. Why? Because time is something we can't get back. I started this video over 6 minutes ago. I can't go back 6 minutes ago and redo or re-say what I said 6 minutes ago. Now, I can edit it to make it look like that, but that time is gone. So we operate knowing time is the most valuable asset and currency we have, with the understanding and practice of effective and efficient time management, division of my time. How much time am I giving to my career, my job? How much time am I giving to God? How much time am I giving to my family? How much time am I giving to the environment I'm in? How much time am I giving to things that's influencing me? Time management. So again, it's operating knowing that time is the most valuable asset and currency we have. All right, number three, according to Kevin Samuels and others, group acceptance by other high value men. So again, an outcome. So you want to be accepted by the group, and that group is specifically, and according to Kevin Samuels and others, is high value men. Now, I can say a lot about that, but I won't. To me, that's a little weird. But that's my opinion. So I'm gonna leave that right there. I get it, but again, to me, that's a little weird. So I'm gonna leave that again right there. A righteous driven man or woman, to me, in my opinion, expects and operates within the understanding that all, all healthy and fruitful relationships are reciprocal. There's a give and take. All right. So you expect it and you operate within it. So somebody you meet, you expect them to understand that the relationship that you're developing with them is reciprocal. There's a give and take. All right. Now, I will tell you that you will be amazed at how often relationships are dependent, how relationships are, driven by one person and dependent by another. All right. Now, some relationships are designed to work that way. Parent to child relationships are, for the most part, designed to work that way. But other relationships, business relationship, intimate relationships, friendships, these relationships are more designed to be reciprocal. They're to be a give and take. So it's understanding, expecting, and operating within the understanding that all healthy and fruitful, specifically healthy and fruitful. See, I'm being very specific. Healthy and fruitful relationships are reciprocal, give and take. All right. So that's number three. Number four, according to Kevin Samuels, what makes a high value man or woman is their network of other high value persons, man or woman, then others. So you gotta have the network of high value people first, and then you have the network of other folk. according to Kevin Samuels and others. All right. So again, I'm looking at this, and is the first thing that I'm seeing is network. To me, that kind of falls in the same context to a measure. I recognize group and network, and I think a network is a type of group. A group is not necessarily a network. So, but kind of in the same train of thought, if you ask me. But network of high value men or women than others. So that's, again, you can go watch his video and he explains that. But to me, when I look at that, that's a little weird, and it's a little Donald Trumpish. So I believe that right there. So righteous, driven men and women possess skill with high competence, which qualifies the man in society. All right. Righteous, driven men and women possess skill with high competence, which qualifies the man in society. All right, so this is what you come in the door with. So if you're LeBron James, you have a high level of skill with competence shooting the basketball. All right, that qualifies a demand, where in turn it turns into money, it turns into notoriety, it turns into a platform, it turns into many things. But without that skill and high level of competence, he's not qualified to be the number one athlete in the world. All right. So if you got the skill, if you ask me, everything else will follow. All right. Oftentimes when I was out there talking to women, one of the things I would say is, if I capture your mind, the rest is easy. Everything else will follow. I'm not opening the conversation trying to get sex. I'm opening the conversation to get your mind. But that's a completely different topic, far and away from what I'm talking about right here. But again, possess the skill, whatever skill it is. If you're a skilled writer, if you're a skilled mason, if you're a skilled carpenter, if you're a skilled lawyer, if you're a skilled doctor, whatever it is, if you're a skilled stay-at-home mother, if you're a skilled, I don't know, linguist, I don't know, anything that has skill to it, long as you possess skill with high competence, which qualifies demand, meaning that people want the skill that you're serving, all right, in society. All right, so that's number 4 for me on what a righteous, driven man or woman has. They possess skill. Now it can be more. It can be one skill, or it can be more than one skill. Personally, I have more than one skill. I can do a lot of stuff, and I do it with a high level of competence. And so it's always been one of those things. I've never really been without a gig, whether it's a job or me owning a business or whatever the case may be, because I have a high level of skill with competence that has demand. Sometimes certain skills are not in demand and other skills are, and you kind of go with it. And then inside of that, you also make room for yourself. And if you understand scripture, you understand that. But again, another topic, another day. Next, Kevin Samuels and others says a high value man or woman has visibility. And I kind of changed how he said this just to make it more bulletized friendly. He says visibility, position, and income available to the world to see. Now, what he says specifically is on a LinkedIn level, meaning that people can go out there and look at your name and all of your information comes up. And the example I remember him using is where, you have a banker and it comes with a list of his titles and what he does, opposed to a person just saying they're entrepreneur. And in that regard, I kind of agreed with him a little bit, where, anybody can kind of be an entrepreneur, but if you don't have some title behind the general title, more detail is required. So I do agree, but I operate from the school of thought that everybody business ain't nobody business. So putting myself out there for everybody to see is one of those things, and obviously I'm on YouTube, so it's one of those things. Again, we'll talk about that in the next thing in a minute, but it's about finding balance. So visibility, according to Kevin Samuels and the others, with a position and income available to the world to see, or on a LinkedIn level, specifically to what he said, is the fifth thing that you want to have to be a high value man or woman. Okay, so, and contrary to that, opposite of that, a righteous driven man or woman. Again, they're talking about outcomes. I'm talking about what you need to have when you walk in the door. Or a righteous driven man or woman operates with the understanding that there is a time and place for everything. Right? Obviously, I just woke up, got hair all everywhere. I got on a jersey. I'm in my kitchen. In the morning. There's a time and place for everything. This shows my level of comfort with the topic I'm presenting. All right, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I hope that this helps, but I'm not trying to sell you anything. You take it or you leave it. Simple as that. But it's one of those things, and I'm not trying to convince you either. And I think oftentimes in the videos I've watched with him, he's trying to convince people. And when he realizes he doesn't convince, and this is a critique, I guess, when he realizes he's not convincing the person of the things he says, he gets upset. And I think that's my biggest critique of him, more than the things he says. I think the second, probably most relevant critique would probably be is how he says things. Not what he says is wrong, but it's how. And I've been guilty of that myself, where the way things come across might not always come across the way I would like them, or obviously the way other people would like them. So, but that's neither here nor there. If he watched this, so be it. So, again, operates within the understanding that there's a time and place for everything. Like I said, I'm in my kitchen in the morning. I'm not gonna go do a job, work for a client, looking like this. I'm gonna clean up a bit. Brush my teeth, wash my face, put on some work clothes, if you will. All right. So that's the fifth thing. The sixth thing, and actually the final thing he says, is utility. And he defines utility as useful to the group and others. And, I think when he says to the group here, again, you can go watch his video. But if I remember correctly, to the group, again, is referring back to that high value group first, and then to others, people outside of the high value group, meaning that you have usefulness to them. So in my mind, that's where the skill comes into play. All right. So, it's one of those things where you do want to be useful. You do want to have function or utility, however you want to call it. But to me, that's an outcome. I think to have usefulness, or a person that's useful inside of a group or inside of an environment or whatever you want to call it, you must possess, or you must practice, self-discipline and self-control. You must know your own strengths and your weaknesses, and you must put energy and effort to accomplish balance within yourself, your relationships, and your environment. All right. And I know I just said a lot. So let's unpack a little bit of that. And if you want to talk about this in the comments, definitely do that. And we could talk about it there. But let's just unpack a little bit. Practice self-discipline and self-control. All right. If you don't have discipline If you don't have discipline to get up in the morning, if you don't have discipline to dress yourself, if you don't have discipline in the way you talk to people, if you don't have discipline in the way you present yourself, so on and so forth, you know, you're going to find yourself on the outside, on the margins. And again, these are not speaking out of observation only. I'm speaking from experience, things that I've personally experienced myself, because these are failures that I've had where, you know, I might have said something to somebody wrong and it put me on the outside of a situation. So making sure you have self-discipline and self-control. Again, control. Being able to control your emotions, not take everything personally. Again, speaking for myself, you know, one of the things that I've really tried to implement and practice over the past few years of being in business for myself again is making sure I control what I control, not allowing other people to cause me to get upset. And I think you know, knock on wood, I've done a pretty good job of that, controlling what you control. But that starts with self-control, saying to yourself, no, I'm not going to let this person upset me. I'm not going to let what's happening in this environment upset me. All right. So control what you control. It starts with self-control, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses. All right. You know, many of the people that call Kevin are looking how to find resolution in terms of relationships. And I think oftentimes one of the things that he points out is weakness. And weakness is one of those things that people tend to avert their eyes from, where they can see their strengths. They know that, you know, hey, I'm making this amount of money and you know, I have a house, I have a car, I have all these things. And they're not looking at themselves in terms of the weakness or the failures or things that they might not see as failure, but society sees as failure. And one of the things that Kevin does is he points out these weaknesses. So, you know, in terms of the market that he often talks about, you know, you put yourself outside of the market or you put yourself outside of the conversation where you're not an option, where you're not useful, where your utility is reduced. And it's one of those things where when you look at yourself, you have to know not only your strengths, but also your weaknesses. Those things that's going to put you outside of the conversation, that's going to put you outside of the market, put you outside of the margins. Okay? So that's that part. Next, put energy and effort into accomplishing balance within yourself, your relationships, and your environment. All right. So, energy and effort, meaning that you're not being lazy about it and actually giving effort, like finding balance. Okay. That goes back to the time conversation. That balance, like time isn't everything, really. You know, that's why I address that as the second thing on this list in terms of a righteous man or a woman. Finding that balance is being able to say, okay, I'm gonna give this much time to work. I'm gonna give this much time to family. I'm gonna give this much time to this, that, and the third. You know, I'm gonna balance money wise, saying, you know, I'm gonna put this amount of money away for the future and this amount of money. So again, it's balance, balance, balance. And oftentimes, I think people fail to see how much or how unbalanced their life is, where you putting all of this into this thing over here and very little, or this thing over here, you putting, no, I got that wrong. All of this energy and effort into this thing over here, the thing that weighs the scale, and very little effort into the thing that is not weighing the scale, that the scale has, you know, is completely skewed on. All right. So, and so when you try to find balance in that level of equilibrium, you got to make sure you're putting the effort into it. And that starts with yourself, you know, whether it's the skill, or whether it's the time, whether it's the discipline, whether it's the control, you know, finding that balance and, okay, these are my strengths and my weaknesses. These weaknesses, you know, if you got a whole lot of strength and a small amount of weaknesses, you know, that's a good thing. But at the same time, you know, to find a balance, you know, you got to say, okay, I'm going to put time towards these weaknesses to improve them so they become strengths. All right. So that's balance in relationships, not giving more than you're getting to a relationship. And then in those situations where you are giving more to a relationship than you're getting, they're reciprocal, is that's a dependent relationship. So you need to really start looking at, okay, is this relationship worth being in? And if it's not, get out of it. As simple as that. So that's the last thing that Kevin Samuels and others present in terms of a high value man or woman. But that's not the last thing I have. The last thing that I'm going to say is a righteous man or a righteous woman knows and is able and willing to get off of their ex. And if you've been in the military or if you've been associated with the military, you understand this. And like from a conceptual standpoint and position, getting off the X is having ambition, having drive, being fearless, all of those things, having courage, all of those things that you hear people say in speech, but rarely see them do. That ability to be able to go into a house that's burning down and save a child or save an old elderly person, that courage, being able to get off of your ex when it's needed. And to me, this is, this, if nothing else, this is the final thing that makes a righteous man or woman, being able to say, you know what, I'm going to stand on this thing no matter what tribulation comes from. And as scripture says, taking up your cross and following him. And, that's so important when you start looking at how this thing started. Like being able to get off your ex, taking up your cross and following him is, you seek, follow, and love the Most High God. And it's one of those things like, to me, it's what creates that thing that God wants you to be. It gives you that purpose, and you'll find yourself doing things and saying things and behaving in certain types of ways. And it's because you're able to get off of your ex. You're able to put forth the effort and the energy to get that which is within your purpose. All right. And, it gives your life order, and this whole thing is full circle. So I just wanted to come out and put this video out. I know it ended up being a little longer than I wanted it to be. But if you're watching Kevin Samuels, this length of video should not be a problem for you. So with that said, I'm Brother Tezwan. This has been Out of All Your Boxes. Peace.